All right, welcome back to the Soccer Hour. We are now joined by Jake Zivin, and I was saying this, I was like, I don't know specifically what your title is now. Is it league play-by-play broadcaster? Is it MLS, like a season pass, like have they told you what your specific title is, Jake?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not one for titles, I would say. Play-by-play commentator for MLS Season Pass, I think
Okay.
probably fits the bill. But
They haven't printed the
yeah.
business cards yet, is what I'm hearing.
No, I'm pretty sure. I mean, come on, this is Apple and MLS. It will be an e-business card,
That's a good
in the
point.
Apple Wallet that we'll be able to airdrop to people if they need our contact information.
Yeah, no, that's very good. And I'm sure the package showed up yesterday with the free iPhone and the MacBook Pro and the Apple House. They got that all set. No, I'm kidding. I'm just giving you a hard time. But first
No.
off, congratulations, man. I think it's awesome. For those of people who've been listening to the Soccer Hour for years now, you and I have been friends. You've been coming on for years, usually before the Earthquakes play the Timbers. So I'll just ask you from that perspective of having to move on from the Timbers specifically. I'm sure you will broadcast a Timbers game again. It works out regionally. I'm sure that would make sense at some point. But
Yeah.
just is it hard to move away from that franchise that's been such a big part of your career up to this point?
It's a good question. On a personal level, right? Like anytime there's change in life, there's can be really positive parts of it, and there can be some not even negative parts, but just because you look back on something really fondly and are maybe sad that it's over doesn't mean that you're not really excited for what's to come. And that's essentially the situation I would say that just personally I'm in. And if, most of the reason are the people that I've worked with. I've worked with the same crew for 8 years. Ross Smith is one of my best friends. I'm so lucky that Nat Porters and Liam Ridgewell are close friends and great people that I've been able to work with. And then the people that the names that the public doesn't know, our producers and our directors, the same crew they were there before me, right? They were there before John Strong and Robbie Earl. They were doing it since the USL days at PGE Park when they would do a Beavers baseball game. And then they would do a Timbers soccer game for what was then FSN Northwest and has become Root Sports. So those people, I think there's some sadness that that's over because we're all very close friends and had an incredible time.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm so excited for what's to come. And I'm so excited to be part of this groundbreaking venture of MLS on Apple TV, MLS Season Pass. We were talking a little bit about this before, the recording started. I'm an MLS guy, MLS nerd, MLS junkie, and I have been since the league started when I was 10 years old. In 1996, I'm aging myself there. I'm dating myself there. But so for me to now be in a situation where I'm going to call theoretically, a different game, a different pairing, a different matchup every week is so exciting for me. I've gotten a little taste of that, of course, over the past 5 years with some work that I've been able to do with ESPN and with Fox. I love it. And I can't wait for that to be kind of the week in, week out reality for me.
Dude, that's the thing is like now you're going to get that, that constant runaround. And like, as we know, as a broadcaster, when you get to prep for one team the same every week, there's only 50% of the prep. When I've been in these situations where I've been thrust, whether it's been a national broadcast or something like track and field, where you have all these new people to prep for, you have all these new people to prep for. And like, there's a condensed timeline. And so I guess, in terms of what you can take away from doing those national games for Fox and ESPN, how are you going to apply that? Because so much of your job has been knowing one side of the narrative so well. And we know modern television broadcast, it's context, context, context.
Right. Sure. Yeah. I mean, over the past few years, when I'm calling a Timbers game locally, right, my prep for that week is mostly focused on the opponent because I know the Timbers. So, man, Diego Chara and I go back 8-9 years, right?
Yeah.
Like I know Diego, I know him really well. If he does something on the field, I know him, right? I of course always have done the week by week prep of the Timbers, updating everything that needs to be updated and putting everything in the context of that matchup and that opponent. But of course, the more time is spent on getting all that stuff down and in my notes and prepared for the opponent. Will it now become kind of double that right on each side? Yeah, of course. I love that. It's fun. It's exciting. It's fresh. It's new. This league is incredible. It is growing. There's so much talent coming into the league. There's young talent, exciting talent coming into the league. So now to be able to really get a taste of all of it. And of course, I've been able to get that over the past 8 years with the Timbers and traveling around. And we're so fortunate to have been a team that we travel on the road to our games. So I've been to the majority of the stadiums in MLS, with the exception of a couple of the really new ones, like the new one in Columbus and the new one in Cincinnati. But other than that, it's been, I think, pretty much every other stadium in MLS. So really fortunate to have kind of gotten the circuit, so to speak. And again, just really excited to be now doing the whole league. And as I said, I'm someone that has always, I keep going back to this. Like, I love MLS. I've always loved MLS. So I've always watched the entire league, even over the past 8 years. Obviously, yes, focusing on the Timbers, and I'm here in Portland, and that's the primary role and the primary literal job and people that I know very well. But if the Timbers are playing at 7:30 Pacific, I'm up in the morning and immediately I've got what will now be MLS Season Pass, though the times will be different now. And that's one of the benefits of this new MLS Season Pass, this new era. But in the past, when times were all over the place, you'd have an early afternoon East Coast game that for us out here in Portland on the West Coast was like 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. at Yankee Stadium or, whatever. And that game's on. Then when the Eastern Conference games start, they go on the TV and I'm just watching games all through the night until I have to go to the stadium.
Right.
Then now the Western Conference games are going on probably at the same time. So the next day I'm trying to catch up, next couple of days, trying to catch up on everything else that happened throughout the league. But what I mean by that is my interest, my focus has always been on the league as a whole and not in like a Portland Timbers silo.
Yeah.
And so it's great. I can't wait. I'm just excited to be doing that every week.
You brought up the start time thing, and that was one of the things they talked about yesterday at the announcement press conference, was that, I don't know, like, I think Twelman who said there was like 63 different start times for games last year. Yeah, that's the
number, 63, yeah.
And that's amazing to me, because one of the things, I'm sure you and I have had this conversation before, whether before games, we talked about, when is an NFL game on? It's like, well, Thursday night, and then like Sunday at 10, and then Sunday the 105 or the 1s or the 125s, then Sunday night, then Monday night. Like, exactly when it's on. And like, that's something to me that's always been, I don't know, like, there is an advantage to having games on whenever, but it's very hard to set your watch to that, especially now that people are going to have to know they're not going to just stumble on it on TV. They have to go to it on the app, which is another discussion. But I think that, cementing the start times to me is a huge change for the better.
Absolutely. 100%. I think that the user experience in many ways in this new era with MLS Season Pass is going to really be enhanced. I think that's one of the main ones. You mentioned the NFL. I grew up in Chicago. I knew the Bears were going to play at noon pretty much every Sunday. And when I was growing up, they weren't very good. They're still not very good. So they weren't on Sunday Night Football a lot. They weren't on Monday Night Football a lot. It was noon on Sunday for the most part. I'd go over and watch the Bears at my grandpa's house with him, every Sunday, essentially. And leave my parents, our house in Evanston, Illinois at 11:30, would be up in Highland Park where my grandparents lived at noon, and we'd watch the game. And it was that routine that was, I think, important in the sense that we knew when it was going to be convenient, right? In the sense that you kind of planned around it. And I think that's going to be a big benefit and a big boost with MLS Season Pass is games are going to be at 7:30. You're going to know, right? You're going to know where they are as well. I mean, not only the 63 different times, but I even look at the Portland Timbers, and there have been seasons where Timbers games have aired on maybe 8 different channels over the 34 games. I mean, you'd have maybe 9. We'd have Root Sports. We have Fox 12, Fox 12 Plus. That's just local. Then on national TV, it might be ESPN. It might be ESPN2. It might be ABC. It might be FS1. It might be Fox. It might be Unimas. It might be Univision. I mean, 9, we're talking 9, 10. You're getting all these different places and all these different times. now everybody will know 7:30 Saturday night, for the most part, MLS Season Pass, Apple TV. That's where I'm going to watch the Timbers, or that's where I'm going to watch the Columbus Crew. And I think that's going to really, really be a benefit for the user experience.
Obviously, this is where the sports world is going, to have these packages where you're buying in. We already heard the NFL make some big news about having one of their, I think it's the Sunday ticket program, is now moving to YouTube for their upcoming season. And by having all these games on MLS Pass, even though at Fox Sports will have some of the nationally televised games, and there are going to be some other ones, but they'll still be available on the MLS Season Pass. Like, that to me is like getting out in front of it. Like, now we're going to watch all the other teams kind of not be copycats, because I don't want to be inflammatory, but it's like all these other leagues now are going to be paying attention to what Apple and Major League Soccer do. Like, that means there is that much more focus, which I guess if you're going to have anything be at the core of that much focus, not many more companies more experienced in that than Apple, if there's any company more experienced.
Absolutely. No, I think you're hitting on it. And right. I mean, is copycat the right word? I don't know, but I think that groundbreaking is the right word for this deal, and trailblazing is the right word for this deal. It's the first of its kind. And I do think it's the future of sports. I don't know if television is the right word, but sports broadcasting. You know, you mentioned for all of those reasons, more than any, right, is what you just said about Apple. Right. I mean, Apple is maybe the biggest brand in the world, and it's a brand that is associated with quality and with user experience in a really positive way. And we're going to see that, I think, with MLS Season Pass, and the ability to use Apple's entire ecosystem, right? I mean, you're talking Apple TV, first and foremost, of course, where the games will live. You've got podcasts, you've got maps. I mean, there's so many photos. You've got so many ways to integrate in Apple's ecosystem, that there's so many possibilities for MLS and for Apple and for this partnership, and for what MLS Season Pass is going to look like. And it's really exciting. And I think you're right that it's the future of sports broadcasting. And it's a future of the way people are going to consume sports. And I think that the user experience is really going to be great. And that once, with any change, right, it takes a little bit of time to get used to it. But once everybody does get used to it, they're going to really see, really feel good about what the change has been and what the experience is like.
The one that I always hear from people is they say, you can't just stumble on a game anymore. You have to go and seek it out, which some people say is problematic. But I'm like, the more I think about that, because that was my first reaction too. I was like, I don't know, you go and put it somewhere else. But then again, it's like everyone's used to going to their phones and pulling up Twitter, pulling up Instagram, pulling up Facebook, pulling up TikTok, whatever it's going to be. Like, we all have that ingrained. And I guess that kind of lines up with the market demographics of Major League Soccer. We all know it's the only league that's had the fan base that's actually been getting younger. Every other major sports league in the United States has been getting older. The only one that's kind of kept pace with not getting older but not getting younger is the NBA. But Major League Soccer has actually been getting younger. So, I mean, it does make sense that this, what other people might not consider the norm, is going to be for a kid who's 16, 17 years old and probably not that far away from considering being a season ticket holder. Just going up and opening an app on Apple TV to watch a game, that will be the norm, just as cable made big changes, 20 plus years ago, when they went from just clicking through channels to suddenly having a guide to go through and getting what you were going to watch. And I mean, to your point about change, I mean, that's the name of the game. Nothing's ever going to stay the same, especially not in sports broadcasting.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned it, the MLS audience is younger, more tech savvy than any of the kind of big traditional sports. I could get into like the demographics and the numbers. I'm not the marketing person, right? But we all know, I think even just kind of observing games and who's engaged in games, it's a younger group. It's a more tech savvy group. And there is the data, right? There are the data that backs this up, that it's a fan base, it's a demographic that is comfortable with streaming, that does stream, that goes to their phones, their iPads, their computers, their Apple TVs, set top box, not the app, right? The Apple TV box connected to their physical television to consume their entertainment. It's something that we're all used to. I mean, when I'm at home with my wife, we are not clicking through channels. We are searching through streaming services, including Apple TV, and primarily Apple TV, to be honest, these days, which I think, this is an aside, I think has the best quality of any shows. I'm not just saying that because I'm not working with Apple. I really do. But what I'm saying is the people like me in my demographic and even younger, right? I'm almost getting close to being out of that demographic that is like the core MLS fan, are already used to that and already have that in their habits.
Yeah.
Is it different for watching sports, in that way? Maybe, but as we've said, like that's already part of the entertainment kind of habits of the fan base.
Yeah. So I just, not to put you on the spot, but what are you going to do when a Timbers fan comes up to you and says, I can't watch the games, or I don't, if they say like, I'm hesitant because, there is that you have to actually purchase it, which my immediate counter would be like, have you seen what you're paying for cable company XYZ?
Sure.
Like that would be my immediate comeback. And that's for a month versus an entire season. But I mean, it's any time when people are being asked to spend money. I mean, to me, your season ticket holder, you get it with that way. That's always a good thing. I can tell you a million fans out there that are going to immediately buy in whatever happens, but I'm sure there will be people who will be on the fence.
Yeah, look, first and foremost, we got that a lot over the past 5 or 6 years. I expect to get it far less, to be honest, because there was not a cord cutting option to watch Timbers local broadcast. And we got that all the time. You had to have cable or satellite to get Root Sports, which is what we were primarily on. And that changed. Last year, we were only with Fox 12 Plus, which is a local over-the-air affiliate here, so you could get it with an antenna. But trust me, I've heard that this will be more convenient, I think, for specifically a Timbers fan base, which I think is in the demographics that we've talked about. The other thing is that there's going to be a lot of games available for free, first of all, if you have the Apple TV app or tv.apple.com, which you can access anywhere you can access the internet, you can get it. There's going to be a lot of games available for just those who have Apple TV Plus, which many people do have. And then, there's going to be a lot of games where you do need the full Apple Season Pass, MLS Season Pass subscription. So there's still going to be ways to watch your team even without that full subscription. But I would say, I think it's worth it. I think that you will, like, your point, to your point about the cost of entertainment in general. I think it's a steal for not only getting your Timbers games, if you're a Timbers supporter, but every game in MLS, no matter where you are in the world, with no blackouts. I mean, the amount of times we heard people tweeted us about blackouts right over the past 8 years.
That's the not to interrupt. That's the huge one for me.
Right.
It's massive. Like that to me, like just being able to watch the game, no restrictions. Like that is a huge upgrade. Like that cannot be emphasized enough. And I'm not just trying to sell it because you and I are already sold on it.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Like that's again, if you want to talk to any angry sports fan, their number one complaint is blackouts, like bar none.
I mean, exactly. And the two biggest complaints that I've heard as doing Timbers local broadcasts over the past 8 years are, I'm a cord cutter, I can't watch the games. And what is with these blackouts? I don't understand why I can watch this game and then I can't watch that game. And I'm here, I went to Bend for the weekend and I can't get the game on TV and I can't watch it. Or now I'm in Montana and it says I have a blackout. What's, you know what I mean? Those two, by far, the two biggest complaints, and they're completely alleviated with MLS Season Pass. And I think that, again, it's going to be a massive benefit for the user experience. And I think everyone's going to be really happy once they kind of settle in and really realize what this means.
Well, and one of the other things that I was talking about with a friend, we were talking about how many channels you needed to watch a Giants game in this past season, because there were games on for it was like NBC Sports Bay Area, and then there were some games on the NBC affiliate local, and then there were also going to be games on MLB TV, and there were also going to, or excuse me, MLB Network, and there were also games on Apple, and there were a couple other ones that was just listing off, and like that's the thing I think where people, even more than the inherent cost or the inherent just, you know, you can watch the game, it's great, but it's people not knowing where to find it. Like the fact that even if a game is on Fox Sports, as they are still doing the national or some of the national games, you will still just be able to go to Apple TV and watch it. Like I think that overall streamlining into the process is another thing it's been mentioned, but it hasn't been talked about quite enough. Because even with the NFL, it's Fox, it's NBC, it's CBS, it's some games on ABC, it's Amazon. And obviously, you know, that's what it takes. There's a lot of money involved. You know, what's the NFL going to do? Not take the money? But I do think people get frustrated of not knowing where the game is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And look, not to compare it to other leagues and other situations. I don't mean to do that. I just think it's going to be a really good user experience. Once everybody settles in and realizes, wow, I know exactly when the game's going to be, and I know exactly where the game's going to be every single week. This is really easy, you know? And I think, and no matter where I am, right? Yeah. If I'm at home, I can get it onto my TV. A lot of smart TVs have the Apple TV apps built in. Yeah. A lot of people have an Apple TV box to connect to their television. They can watch it there. If I'm on the go, I can watch it on my phone. If I'm, you know, maybe in a place where I'm settled down somewhere, but you know, we don't have a TV, I can watch it on my iPad, right? Yeah. Like, but you know exactly where to get it and so many different ways to watch it. And even that's a way, right? Like, okay, in the past, maybe you had a cable subscription and you knew how to get it on your TV, but then if you were on the go or at somebody else's house, maybe, you know, oh, how do I get this now? How do I sign and do it on my phone or what, right? Like, do I use this app or do I use that app? And now it's just going to be so streamlined, so easy, same time, same place every week. Yeah. I really think it's going to be great for the user experience. And like, again, as we said earlier, like that's Apple, right? Apple's all about, that has been their brand for decades. Before the iPhone, before the iPod, that was what Apple was known for, was user experience. It just worked and worked well. And then I think we're going to see that continued to this MLS Season Pass deal.
In terms of, you know, maybe with the broadcasts, in terms of the focus, in terms of the storytelling, you know, are they giving you, you know, not creative liberty, but do you feel like they're going to be willing to listen to you? Like if you're prepping for a game, you're saying like, hey, I've heard this story about this player on this team. Maybe he's not a star player, but I think it's something that people will want to know about. Because I think that and I'm trying to be fair with this, but it's like, if you watch a home broadcast, you're going to get a lot of your home team and maybe not as much of the other team. And in a national broadcast, it's going to be a little bit, you're going to take from both. But I think most people in the past, they would, you know, if the Giants game, to take for baseball, if they were playing whoever, they're not going to go and watch the Rockies broadcast. They're going to watch the Giants broadcast if they're a Giants fan. But you know, now you have a unique opportunity where the local TV broadcast isn't going to be there anymore. So like you know, there's a lot on you to try and figure out those stories. Do you think that you'll be able to pitch those and be like, hey, we should talk about it like this, like, or I talked to such and such from this team. I think there's something, you know, that both fan bases will want to hear about.
Yeah. First and foremost, I think, you know, production plans are to follow, and more will be coming out when it comes to everything involving that, both, you know, kind of focus of broadcast and more of the technical stuff. In the end, you know, it's still soccer broadcasting, right? We're still broadcasting a game. And so I think all of the tenets of broadcasting a match are going to apply. And that, of course, you know, includes what the most intriguing storylines of every game are. And a lot of times that's the star player, right? That's Carlos Vela versus Chicharito if it's LAFC versus the Galaxy. I mean, that when those two teams are playing, that might even be like the fourth tier storyline, right? I mean, there's so much going on in El Tráfico. But a lot of times it's a really cool human interest story. A guy like Ryan Hollingshead, now in LAFC, used to be on FC Dallas, who has it built took a year off after being drafted to build a church with his brother. That's almost a decade ago. Was in a car, saved somebody from a car accident, and suffered an injury doing so in an ice storm in Dallas. I mean, there are so many players in this league that have so many wonderful personal stories that maybe aren't that big star household name. And it's still broadcasting. We're still putting on a soccer match. So of course, all of those tenets of storytelling will apply, and they'll apply, using all of the enhanced tools and production quality that I think we're going to see with this partnership with Apple. Like I said, the full production plans and everything are to come. But in the end, I think, we're broadcasting soccer. We're doing so with some, I think, what will be really cool enhancements. With Apple.
One of those enhancements, and this is, again, I'm going to be in this situation where I'm going to be like, Jake, don't be offended, but I'm going to say, hey, if you want to broadcast a home broadcast of the earthquakes while Jake Zivin is doing the TV or the stream, however we're going to call this, like, hey, you can on the drop down menu, there's supposed to be the ability to have the radio call. So I hope you won't be offended if I still market that and you're doing the broadcast.
No, look, I think it's a really cool part of this of this broadcast package, right? Is there will still be that ability to get that local flavor. That's awesome. Of course, that's something that people have talked a lot about with the deal is not having local broadcasts anymore. And that'll still be there, right? For the people that want it, which is great. So that'll be a cool feature, I think, of this. And now, for me, what I think is going to be awesome is when there's a great moment, you'll be able to go back and watch how it was called on MLS Season Pass. And then you'll be able to go back and watch how it was called by the home team radio, right? Matched up with the video. And whenever there's a big moment in any sport, I love that, right? And seeing all the different, and you'll be able to see it in English and in Spanish and maybe in French if it's a Canadian team, right? And so that'll be really fun, and it's a good feature, of course, for local supporters that still really want that kind of local flair, so to speak.
One of the things that I immediately had a reaction to was, okay, NFL is the only team or the only league in this country that has the national TV broadcasts. Right. And so I had that concern of like, well, the NFL is a giant. And then I thought to myself after a while, I was like, well, maybe that's what Major League Soccer is somewhat planning for. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but obviously, like, we just had a boost of an incredible World Cup. There is going to be a boost of another World Cup in one of these three countries, ours that we call the United States home, but it's going to be the US, Canada, Mexico. It's going to be the biggest party in the history of the known universe that we know of, at least. So, I mean, maybe this is the right way to think about it. Like, because the NFL does it, it's like, this is an event. This is why there's only a national broadcast. It's taken me a little bit of time, but I do like the idea of Major League Soccer being like, this is an event. I mean, if we're watching the EPL in the United States, we're not watching a local TV broadcast. We are watching a national or international broadcast, however you want to designate it, because it's an event. And so like treating it as such, and again, it took me a bit to warm up on that idea because as a broadcaster, I think about everything. I ruminate way too long, but I was like, you know what? Having it be Aventus, like that, there is power in that. Like there is a certain, a cachet about that.
I think not only is there power, I've always felt that is one of Major League Soccer's biggest strengths in the American sports landscape is, as you mentioned, a soccer match is still an event. It basically happens once a week. Of course, there's some midweek games, but your team's going to play once a week. It allows you to build anticipation for that game, get excited for it. I personally think, as a fan, that something that hurts Major League Baseball, the NBA, and the NHL is the amount of games. This is not a groundbreaking thought when it comes to sports, right? But there's so many games. And as I've gotten older, I grew up, I'm from Chicago, diehard Chicago Fire fan growing up, diehard Cubs fan growing up. But as I've gotten older and as I've moved around the country for work, right, it's a lot harder for me to stay engaged and locked in with the Cubs because there's 162 games. And unless they're really good, okay, and the game in August when they're out of it, right? And so, and it's not an event. The games are not an event. MLS, the games are an event. And in the NFL, the games are an event. In college football, the games are an event. Those are the two most popular sports in America, right? American football. So
Yeah.
I think that MLS leaning into that is the way to go. I think that's a big reason why MLS has reached popularity, especially with people going to games in person,
Yeah.
because you build up that excitement to go to the game on a Saturday night. And for sometimes maybe there hasn't been a home game in 2-3 weeks. So you can build up that excitement to be there. And so, yeah, I'm right there with you. I think it's important. I think with everything involved in this with MLS Season Pass, it's going to feel more like that. You're going to have a pregame show, right, for all the games on that night. And it's going to build excitement for that night's slate of games, like when you watch an NFL Sunday morning pregame show. The whip around show is going to be so exciting, an ability to just see every goal, every big save, every big decision that's made in a game just by watching one channel. And then at the end of the night, when it's all over, one kind of comprehensive wrap-up show of that night. It just makes each match day, so to speak, is it called in England, feel really big and really important. And I do think that's going to be something that's going to be highlighted and enhanced with MLS Season Pass. And look, you mentioned the 2026 World Cup and this past World Cup. I know Don Garbrick, MLS commissioner, has said that he thinks that World Cup is going to be rocket fuel for Major League Soccer. Obviously, I agree. And I think with Apple's ability to reach the entire world right now and to create this incredible user experience for somebody, if they're in Portland, if they're in San Jose, if they're in New York, if they're in Madrid, right? If they're in Buenos Aires, anywhere in the world, you're going to find new audiences that they're going to come into the league. It's only going to help it as it grows toward 2026 and beyond.
On a personal level, what are you most excited about with this?
Yeah, I've mentioned it a few times, how deep, my love for MLS is, how far back that goes as a kid. I interned for the league in the broadcasting department when I was in college, when I was 19 and 20 years old. From that, I worked on the production of the MLS Game of the Week, ESPN Soccer Saturday on ESPN2 in 2005 and 2006 as the clock and score operator. I was like the junior person in the production truck, the youngest person in the truck by far, kind of lowest on the kind of tier sheet. And I've really loved this league for a really long time. So to be, now part of this new, really exciting and groundbreaking and innovative era of MLS broadcasting is beyond a dream job for me. I'm so excited for it. And to be part of such a talented group of dynamic, of passionate other broadcasters that were announced yesterday and will be, of course, more to be announced in the future is just, I'm just thrilled. I'm honored. I'm excited. And I can't wait to get going.
Right on, Jake. Well, congratulations. Thanks, again, man. My friend. I know you've got stuff to do, so I'll let you go. But I'm looking forward to being able to watch even more of your broadcasts. And I'm sure that we will be talking before games as soon as we get that schedule of broadcast assignments out. I can be like, hey, Jake, hit me up before this one. I can let you know what's going on with the team as it trends in that direction. But a lot yet to be discovered. But it's a pretty cool journey that the league and Apple are going on. Glad to see you right there in the middle of it, man. And again, look forward to hearing your calls.
Thank you, Ted. Really appreciate that. And if I'm doing a San Jose game, by all means, choose the home radio broadcast. You listen to Ted. That's okay. I'm good with that.
He said it, not me, folks. Jake Zivin, everyone.
Thank you, Ted.